Hello, my name is Father Gregory Pine. This is Pines with Aquinas. I just realized I have 3 fruits on my desk here. So just in case I get hungry at any point in this particular video, I have my option between banana, kiwi, and apple, all of which is good news. Also, autofocus is good news. Check that out. Wait for it. Okay. All right, and we're done. All right, in this video, we're going to talk about, maybe that's foolish to start in such a lighthearted note, but we're going to talk about healing, specifically why God does and why God does not heal, and what we are to learn from that and how we are saved by that. So let's get after it. Okay, so this question comes from Sverker, who says, why does God only heal some people and not others? It would be better for him to either heal everyone or no one. All right. Excellent question. I thought as a way by which to get this conversation started, we could take a small passage from John 9, in which the question of healing, or the reason for which one needs healing, arises. So, it begins. As he passed by, he saw a man blind from his birth, and his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, it was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be made manifest in him. Okay, that the works of God might be made manifest in him. In order to get a sense for why God heals, we need to situate a theology of healing within a theology of creation. When we ask, why did God create? We have to begin with the recognition that he doesn't need us. This is something that I repeat often and at great length. He doesn't need us, but he created us because he thought we might like it. So God's choice to create us is a reflection or is a kind of indication of his divine abundance or divine generosity. God subsists as, teeming, endless, boundless, unsoundable depths of life, all right? And in the act of creation, he gives expression to that life in X, Y, and Z different kind of concrete and limited ways, so as to afford those X, Y, and Z concrete and limited ways the opportunity to share in his divine abundance. So, Father Gregory, speak more concretely and use examples. You have been asked to do both things. All right. So God creates rocks. God creates plants. God creates animals. God creates human beings. God creates angels, each of which have the opportunity to partake of his divine life in a distinct manner. All right. So rocks partake of the divine life rockily, and plants partake of the divine life plantily, and animals, you see where this is going. Okay. So each of us, by being what we are and by acting as we are given to act, show forth something that's unique, something that's excellent, something that's wonderful about God. And we each are capacitated, basically, to tend back to God in the way proper to our state. So we as human beings, because we have minds with which to know and hearts with which to love, are capable of knowing God with his own knowledge of himself and loving God with his own knowledge of himself, and so glorifying God in a way that's particular, or in a way that's that's set apart from the beasts or the plants or the rocks, etc. Okay. So when God creates, he creates with this design, or he creates with this plan in mind. He creates with this kind of divine abundance unto a divine manifestation. That's the whole idea, or at least that's the beginning of the whole idea. Now, when we sin, we introduce a principle of disorder or a principle of chaos into creation. So God created us in a state of grace with the intention that we would affirm him as the one thing necessary, as at the kind of height or summit of a hierarchy of goods, and that we would interact with different goods in a way that was orderly. So God created all kinds of good things, and he said, enjoy them, but enjoy them in a way that they merit being enjoyed. So he's like, here's ice cream, and here's friendship, and here's divine worship. And he's like, go for it. And you're like, wait a second, what if I spend all of my time with ice cream? And he's like, that's silly. So you're like, okay, some time with ice cream, but more time with friendship and the most time with worship. He's like, it's not just a matter of apportioning time. It's a matter of apportioning your heart. Okay, so we need to apportion our heart in such a way that the realities to which we are given are actually capable, are metaphysically thick enough to support our heart's love. All right, now when we go about that in the wrong way, we sin. And when we sin, we introduce, like I said, disorder or chaos into the world. And one of the results of that is sickness, death, bodily deformity, all kinds of these, different afflictions or maladies which afflict us in our experience of human life. And so then the question is, what is God going to do with these things? All right. How is God going to draw forth from these things a peculiar or excellent expression of his glory? How is God going to use this for the good? And I think you see this in awesome and manifest fashion in the ministry of our Lord Jesus Christ. Christ heals basically to draw out or to kind of crown faith. So for him, a bodily healing is always an indication of, what would you say, bodily and a spiritual purpose. God is about a spiritual work, namely of growing faith, hope, and charity, of drawing the soul into more intimate communion with him. And he uses bodily signs like healings of maladies as a way by which to confirm that he is who he says he is, that he is worthy of belief, right? That he is worthy of trust, and that if we are to love him, we can be confirmed in that desire because he shows himself so much a lover of us. Most especially on the cross, but in each and every healing which he performs in the Gospels. So then the question is, all right, the problem here is God is healing some people, but he's not healing other people, both in the days during which he walked on the earth, but also in the subsequent dispensation of all 2,000 years since. So what are we to make of that? Because it seems undemocratic. All right, good observation. It is kind of undemocratic, but I would submit to you that God is not about a democratic work in the way that we ordinarily conceive it. So God isn't about a work of making everyone equal. He's about a work of making everyone good, but everyone good in differentiated fashion. And to some, he gives more manifest gifts. To some, he gives more hidden gifts. To some, he gives more particular gifts. To some, he gives more general gifts. You see where this is going, okay? So our Lord loves the Blessed Virgin Mary in peculiar and excellent fashion. But for instance, we don't know of any occasion in the Gospels where he healed her bodily. But he loved her in different ways. Obviously, she is the mother of God and she receives grace in accord with her divine maternity. So she is very much most loved by God, we might say. Or think about Saint Joseph. So he is afforded the grace and dignity of being the father of the Lord, the most chaste spouse of the Virgin, the universal protector of the church. He is afforded great graces in his life, but maybe not necessarily the grace of healing. All right? So when we turn then back to this passage from John 9, Jesus answered, "It's not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be made manifest in him." So when God brings about a healing, it's for the manifestation of his goodness to that particular person, to those who experience the event in its time and place, to those who experience the event in subsequent recountings of the story, perhaps through reading of the Gospels, for instance, right? But the idea is that it's a manifestation of the divine goodness, all right? And that divine goodness is going to be expressed in creation and in recreation, the recreation kind of, as it were, of grace, in differentiated fashion. Because, like we said, God is not about a democratic work of making us all to be the same kind of holy. He wants us to be different kinds of holy. He wants us to be different kinds of holiness, because in so being, we're able to say something unique and wonderful about his divine life, and thereby to make manifest to the world something unique and wonderful of his divine life, so that in the contemplation of that providence, in the contemplation of the unfolding of that excellent divine plan, many people might be brought to the contemplation of his goodness, and many people might be brought to the praise of his glory. So, if it is an occasion of scandal, or if it is an occasion of a kind of bewildering particularity that God would choose this and not that, or God would choose me and not you, or that God would choose her and not him, okay, so be it, right? We need to be able to abandon ourselves to that divine will, even if it might not necessarily look as we in our, in my case, American sensibilities would have it. It's sufficient to know that it is good, that it loves each of us in a way that is particular, that it conducts each of us towards our end, again, in a way that is vocational, that is contingent, and that is, just as glorious as it is limited. So it's in that spirit that we can say, though he does not heal all, yet he heals whom he wills, ultimately for the healing of the whole world by drawing each and every human being into the plan of his salvation, which at the end of the day is all that matters. So, that's what I've got for you. This is Pints with Aquinas. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't yet, please do check out Godsplaining, Godsplaining, which is another podcast to which I contribute with frequency, where sweet stuff happens at sweet intervals. That is the most descriptive thing, or that is the most descriptive description that I've ever given of God's planning. All right, until the next time, my prayers are for you. I ask that you please pray for me, and we will catch you on Pints with Aquinas. Cheers.